So today we have a core practice, and this is just going to be a delightful core practice that I'm going to make as accessible as possible to anybody, no matter how pandemically conditioned your core is feeling right now. And I'm just so thrilled for those of you who are able to make it live. And if you're watching this on a recording, thank you so much for your time and attention as well. So this is offered up freely. And we are asking if you have the means to please make a donation to the Anti-Defamation League. My name is Ariele. I live in Washington, D.C. I am a physical therapist, a doctor of physical therapy, and a longtime yoga teacher, 20 years this year. So you're going to see a huge hybrid of movements, some of which are really stemming from my physical therapy practice and understanding, and it's just going to be fun as best as it can be. So grab a block. If you don't have a block, if you're at home, you might have a throw pillow or something along those lines. So go for that, and we'll be getting started on our backs. I'm going to change up one little thing real quick. Okay. So a couple of really important things. One, you might hear a bit of the creaks and cracks from my floor. So that's just what I call like floor arthritis when you live in an old building. Number two, we're thinking of core in a three-dimensional way. So not just the front of the body, not just bicycles, not just crow pose, that sort of thing, but really everything, and not even 360 degrees, which would be front, sides, and back. We're thinking of the core as a three-dimensional entity. And that includes your pelvic floor, your respiratory diaphragm, so bottom and top, all of the layers of the abdomen, from the innermost layer of transversus abdominis out to the outermost layer, the rectus abdominis, and the in-between obliques, and deep muscles along your back, and even the attachments of the respiratory diaphragm and the pelvic floor. So when I speak about core, it's a big, broad, definition, and it's inclusive of these three dimensions, inclusive of our breath, most importantly. And this is one area where yogis can really, really shine. We are so rooted in breath. And we're going to talk about how to distinguish between the different ways of breathing that can enhance your core and can enhance the natural rhythms of your core, of your organs. One last little piece of information that I think is helpful. I also think of this as lumbopelvic control. So it's not always about just building sheer muscle in this area or in the back or in the up or down, but also about can you move, can you articulate each and every little bit, and can we get those parts and pieces to move in a very natural unison way. So that's what informs some of my cues and instructions that you'll hear. Let me roll my skeleton further out of the way, and we'll get started. So block or throw pillow, have it just within arm's reach off to the side, and let's lay down on our backs. Back of the neck long, hands to the abdomen, jaw relaxed. We're going to start with a very easy breath. The beauty of this is it's not forced. I recommend breathing in and out through your nose. And I recommend having your knees bent and your feet flat like mine are. Placing your hands wherever feels comfortable. If they're on your torso, allow that to give you a little bit of feedback about the rhythm of your breath. And as you inhale, I invite you to use your imagination a little bit, but think of the pelvic floor relaxing, maybe even broadening a little bit. As you exhale, think of the pelvic floor retreating upward, up your body just a little bit. We're talking millimeters at most. But this is an important pulsation, spanda in Sanskrit, of these two parts of our bodies. As we come into the final stages of our body centering, place your hands on the lowest ribs on either side if this is comfortable. If this isn't comfortable, by the way, you can always bring your hands to the opposite side of your low ribs. And I invite you to encourage breath laterally into the hands, into the side ribs. So breathing in and out through your nose. And then finally, one last thing. So we're going to exhale and draw the knees into your chest. Sometimes when you're asked to draw your knees into your chest in yoga, teachers will say, keep your tailbone long, but we're going to do the opposite. So scoop your hands behind the knees. Eyelids still heavy if you'd like. Push your legs a little bit forward. You might even curl your head off the floor, and you can feel your tailbone lift up a little bit from the floor, right? Exhale, come on down, and then let your tailbone stay kind of lifted. For anyone out there who's really struggling with getting your tailbone off the floor, which for people who are very back bendy, that can be a thing. You can actually do a little bit of a hack. Place your block underneath your pelvis. And then as your knees come into your chest, you might actually have to hold on to the block, but you'll be able to feel more rounding in your low back. That way. So from here or wherever you are, take a couple of breaths into the back of your body. So you're thinking about the low ribs area. So imagine breath, not just in the front body, not just belly breathing, but lateral and posterior. And you could even put your hands on the top of your chest so you're getting breath more into the upper aspects of your lobes. I invite you to think of and imagine your lungs like a sponge or sponges. That's literally their texture is a bit like a very delicate sponge. And breathe into it. Let the air get absorbed and move through the whole thing expansively. Exhale, settle your feet down. If you have the block underneath of you, as I did, set it off to the side. And place your hands behind your head, at least one of them. Maybe place the other one on the front of the neck. So we're going to walk the feet forward a little bit. Flatten the back, ribs down, pelvis, front pelvic points up. Make sure your feet are more like hip distance apart. You don't want them too wide. Mine were too wide a moment ago. And then just raise one leg and then the other. So what I'm focusing on is keeping my
low back, my lowest ribs, the 12th rib, glued down to the floor. It takes a little bit of muscular effort. And as I do that, I'm also thinking about keeping the neck muscles really relaxed. For a lot of yogis, we tend to over-engage neck muscles when we're working core. Pay attention to, you can switch your hands if you'd like, both that you can pay attention also to the pressure on the right side versus the left and make sure that it's even. Still easy breath, even though your muscles are engaged, you've got the freedom to breathe into the sides of your ribs here. And so now, hands can be beside you, feet to the floor. Go ahead and flatten your back, lifting your tailbone just a little bit and lower down. Wiggle your feet as far apart as feels comfortable. Flatten your back. See if you can smush lovingly your low back down into the floor while getting a little bit of your buttocks off the floor and lower down. And we'll just do that for a few more rounds, right? Connecting movement to breath. Awesome. Wiggle your left foot to the center line. Scoop the hands behind the right thigh. And then exhale and curl up. Inhale down. And exhale, curl. So hip extensors active, abdomen active, breath really moving into the back body. If you have anything going on your neck, you need a little extra support back there. The hand can go behind the head. And if you're ready to turn the fire up a little higher, the top bust, you can sweep your other leg out and maintain it out while maintaining your low back connected to the floor as we move through this pulsation of breath. Two more. Hold it at the top. You can lower your arms, lower the legs, go into some variation of Ardha Navasana. And then knees into your chest. This time let your knees go wide. Clap the soles of your feet together, rocking a little side to side. And lower your right foot down. Scoop the hands behind the left leg. Curl up using the strength of your left hip extensors. Inhale down. Exhale, curl. Inhale down. Feel free to support your head here. If you are supporting your head, I recommend pushing the head lightly back into the hands. This is a great way to build some deep neck strength. And if it works for you, float one of your legs out as you curl up. And last one, you're going to stay up. You're going to lower your arms, lower your legs, support your head if you wish. This actually makes it a little bit harder in some ways. And then draw your knees in, rock a little side to side. We'll come back to a variation of that move, but for now, let's give that a little bit of a rest. One of my favorite things to do is sweep the feet to the very edges of the yoga mat, and hearing my creaky floor, just rock right and left, all the way right, all the way left, back and forth. And as you come back through your center, settle your feet, float your right knee up again. We'll start on the right again. And I want you to bring your right hand. So this is going to be pretty precise. The hand is in this kind of like stop sign position. And it's going to be sort of pushing the flesh of your thigh toward your knee a little bit, but in an isometric fashion. So you're going to be starting to push very close to your knee, pushing the skin forward, curling the tailbone up. And if you are already feeling it in your belly, you can stay here. If you're not feeling it in your belly yet, the next stage is to put opposite hand behind the head and curl up a little bit. If you feel it more in the flexor of the hip, then switch hands and see if that helps. You can be a little to the inside of the knee rather than right on top. And if you want a little more fire, add your other leg. We're going to hold this for 5, 4. Hopefully you feel some shaking. And release. Whew. Do anything you want to do. I like to take this nice low bridge here, just stretching out the front of the hips, and then settle it down vertebra by vertebra. Articulating your lumbar spine is a super powerful way to be able to build some stability there. You're going to lift up your left leg now and start with the left hand on that left leg. Remember, it's that stop sign hand. I'm not using my fingers at all. Heel of the hand presses the flesh towards the knee. Hand to the back of the head, curl it up, and pause here. Both arms, both legs. You've got lots of options. And this is all about a nice long hold. So we've got 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Release it down. Shake out your knees. We'll switch it up before coming back to that one as well. So grab your block, squeeze it between your thighs. Set your feet the same distance apart as your block. Pushes your legs, you know what I mean? Whatever feels natural right there. And I have my hands behind my head just because this feels good. So back flattens into the floor, tailbone rises, and we're going to squeeze that block and lift up into a low bridge. Bridge is often in the context of yoga taught as a back bend, but I actually really encourage it to be taught more as a strengthening action, specifically strengthening for your glutes, your inner thighs, and your abdomen. And this is how to do it. Hug into that block, pull the front hip points up, squeeze the glutes, feel the core engage. I have a blog post coming out on this with some video in the near future with Kira Grace and Yoga Anatomy Academy. Lower down vertebra by vertebra by vertebra from your bridge pose, and then float both legs up. So you're looking for the 90-90 position, but depending on the shape of your unique body, you might need to go a little bit closer and maybe even a lot closer to build this strength without hitting your hip flexors. So I don't want you feeling this move here at the front of the hips, at the crease. I want you feeling it here in the torso. Cross your arms like that. And we're going to place the heels of the hands on opposite knee. I feel like my arms are barely long enough. And flatten the back. Start to build up some sustained resistance. Tailbone rises, ribs root down into the ground. Toes can spread and activate. Back of the neck stays long. If you want a little bit more, you can lift your head here. You can lift your tailbone a little bit here. Hold it for 5, 4, I'm counting breaths now. 3, 2, and 1. Gently draw your knees into your chest, rock a little side to side. And we're going to do something a bit unusual in yoga classes. There is a lot of strengthening of the core, but very rarely are we really giving a lot of attention to our hip flexors and the strength of the hip flexors. So let's go ahead and slide the block underneath your hips, or your towel, your throw pillow will do just fine. And you're going to straighten one leg out, keeping the other knee in. So adjust so that the block doesn't move or the throw pillow doesn't move. And if you need to, you can scoop behind one of your legs. So the one that is still on the floor and straight, you're going to lift it and lower it. Scoop the abdomen, lift and lower. And the important part of this is this eccentric move. I don't care if your heel gets to the floor, but you're going to go up and down eccentrically. I'm going to come in and check and make sure all the streaming is still going well. So hang tight. I haven't left yet.
Okay, you can still hear me, yeah? All right. So we are here with the block. Left knee to chest, right leg is lowering, and I'm maintaining this control, right, of the abdomen as I go. So we're going to switch up, draw the right leg in, and then left leg. Your toes can be pointed, core engaged and steady. And you're going to lift and lower. Easy breath. Stay strong in the center. Try not to back bend here. Your body might want to back bend. And we've got about 3 to 4 more. I'm checking on the IGTV now. Thank you guys for being here. Okay. So, settle both of your feet down to the floor. Lift up and slide your block out of the way. And we're going to scoop behind the right leg again. So left leg lifts, left leg straightens to the sky. Don't worry if it's fully straight. And you're going to use just this right leg to help rock you forward, right? Feel a little bit of that variation of Navasana. And then slowly come on back. Left leg is going to either help you by taking you forward and helping you up a little bit, or you can lose the momentum of the left leg and just use the right. Come on up and lower down. Oh my goodness, my floor has so much to say right now. Come on up and lower down. And 3. And down. And 4. And down. And then last one, 5. Pull yourself up. Settle your feet to the ground. Heart lifts. Feet are wide. Lower yourself vertebra by vertebra. You can always use your elbows in place of that. Stretch everything out here. Before we do the other side, which we are going to do, I promise you, we're going to come onto our bellies. So go ahead and roll over. And rest your forehead on the back of your hands. So every now and then somebody comes to yoga and is uncomfortable just being flat on their abdomen. And one of the reasons for that is usually a little bit of hyper concentration of the curve of your low back. There's some other words I could use here, but I think that's like the best explanation. And so what you really want to do is squeeze your glutes, scoop your belly here, float your legs off the floor. So you won't float a whole lot, but that's how you know you're actually engaging your glutes and your hamstrings. These are muscles that are going to float your legs off the floor, the primary ones that should be working. The second thing is we do want to use the muscles of our back body, including our low back, but you want to use the small muscles after the big muscles kick in. So in this case, big muscles are the glutes, the hamstrings, and then we're going to engage the lats by imagining you're pulling down and lifting up into this variation of locust pose. Lower, shake everything out, squeeze your glutes, squeeze your shoulder blades, lift your chest. And lower down other cheek to the floor. Shake it all out. And then this time as you come up, reach your right arm and your left leg. So you're reaching nice and long, connecting the breath in the back of the body. And then exhale, lower down, shake it out. Other side, reach, reach, lift, lengthen as you go. Feel a scooping in of your abdomen so your breath can still be posterior. Low ribs, broadening and breathing. And then lower down and wiggle your feet wider apart, like maybe past the edges of your yoga mat. Go ahead and bend your knees and switch your feet side to side here. I'm hitting the wall, which is maybe happening to you as well. But just go in as much of a range as you can go. Now scoop through the abdomen and see if you can really isolate this to the extent reasonable in your hips rather than as a spinal twist. And what that's going to feel like is if you put your hands under the front of your pelvis, you're going to maintain a pretty neutral pressure right to left as much as you can under the right ASIS and the left ASIS. Those are the bony front little parts of the pelvis that stick out. Click your heels, press the pelvis down, but don't crush your hands. Float the legs, float the heart, reach the arms behind you, working that back body, active bow pose. Oh my gosh. Connect, stay up as long as you'd like. Flip your palms, maybe outward. You can do so much fun stuff in these back bends, alternating arms, etc. These are just powerful 360-degree, three-dimensional core stability moves. Lower out, relax back onto your back, but not for too long, because we're going to scoop behind the left leg, right leg raises, and then either use that right leg for a little bit of momentum to help you up, or try to keep that right leg low. We've got a bunch of these on this side. And what you can pay attention to as you stay steady in your thoughts, steady in your breath, steady in your movements as well, you can pay attention to whether it's harder on one side than the other. Or easier on one side versus the other. Last two. As we come up, we're going to stay in our Navasana, our modified Navasana. Okay? So you can stay up with your feet off the floor, or if you just as I did, grab your block and place it between your thighs. Squeeze in and hold. Excellent, and lower down. So with that one, I actually feel my hip flexors kick in a lot. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I want to train my body to use more than just the hip flexors. They're obviously used to being worked because we're used to sitting a lot. So we're going to try a few different things. So grab your block, place it lengthwise. If you are using your throw pillow at home, go ahead and just add a second throw pillow or sweatshirt, whatever you got. Widen the space between your legs and whatever it is that you're squeezing. And then hug in and just rock back a little bit. In the event this is really painful for you, you can always use your hands behind you and scoop, either painful or just too much on your body. And so you're working to connect to core, engage and squeeze, and rise up. Connect to core, engage and squeeze, and rise up. If you want more than that, keep hugging the block. It's a little awkward because your legs are further apart. Come into that Navasana with your legs apart. Smile on the face, optional. And then lower down. That one I felt more in my inner thighs, more in my core, and less just concentrated in my hip flexors. Go ahead and set the toes together and allow your knees to separate a little bit, like a little butterfly action, a little book action of the knees, right? Now, we're gonna do something really nice for our feet here, which will just be a modest detour. So base of the big toe stays down. You can actually kind of glue it down into place and butterfly your knees out to the side. Let me turn towards you a little bit so you can see. I'm holding down not the toe itself, but the front of the foot, the long bone at the base of the toe. And I'm maintaining that down to the floor as my knees sort of butterfly out. Now I'm going to let go of my hands and use my foot muscles to maintain that same exact action. That's it. Okay, I could do that forever. That's a really powerful way to strengthen some of the muscles intrinsic to our feet and a little bit extrinsic, or at least intrinsic to our ankles. So now, keeping your feet rooted, knees can be as far apart as feels comfortable. Grab your block again. And if you are someone who needs to be a little more delicate with your back, you can do this as a gentle twist. If you feeling pretty sturdy, scoop, lean, hold your block, even squeeze your block between your hands, no fingers, and then dip and row, dip and row, dip and row. Of course, you can make this harder as you wish by scooping your feet off the floor or not. Dip and row. And last few. And then go ahead and set this to the side. Set your block to the side. Come into a comfortable seated position. Notice which ankle is in front if you're sitting cross-legged as I am, and then just lift one cheek and then the other. You're gonna do this, and you're gonna try to keep your knees in their original position, more or less. It becomes harder with the leg that is in front, but it is possible. We'll go ahead and switch sides. And go ahead and, yep, see, now that this leg's in front, the knee wants to come up. And we're gonna do our best to keep the knee glued in position as you scoop and scoop. These actions here, shoulders are level with the ground. I'm not doing the falling tree. I'm not doing the teapot. I'm actually keeping the shoulders level as I scoop and scoop, because this allows me to access quadratus lumborum in coordination with the obliques. Beautiful. And then sweep both legs over to one side. You're going to interlace your fingers in front of you like so. And I want to say that if you're already a little bit uncomfortable, you're going to be so much happier sitting on the block and starting from the block. Your shins are completely, your legs are not crossed at all. And what we're going to do from here is hands interlaced. You're just holding your own hands in front. Rise up into a kneeling position. Come on down. Now, if that was too crazy for you, didn't happen for whatever reason, you can always put one hand to the floor and press your pelvis forward. So this is getting that shoulder stability, hip and pelvic stability and mobility, and your core is inevitably stabilizing the whole way. If your hand is on the floor, you're getting a little bit more obliques. If you're just rising up and down through center, you're getting a bit more of that 360-degree core. Gorgeous. And as you settle down, depending on what feels good to you, you can transition through to the other side in a deep squat. Try to do it without using your hands. So I'm going to scoot back until I'm fully on my block, hang out in a deep squat for a moment, and then we'll take it to the other side. Remember, you don't want your knees overlapping one another at all. So, same thing here. Optional hand down to the floor. You can either kind of press forward and down, or you can rise up and down. Half kneeling. What a talkative floor I have. And we will come back through that steep squat position. So again, if you can do this without your hands, go for it, because these are the moves that are required of lumbopelvic stability through its fullest natural range. Settle your elbows to the inside of your knees. Squeeze in, back of the neck long. Feel a nice expression, soft expression, come over the face. If you're sitting on a block, this is going to be so much easier. Feet shoulder distance apart, knees tracking wide, float your hips off the block and settle back down. So we're moving into a variation of chair pose, down into a variation of Malasana. And if you can do it without your hands, go for it. Keep that up. Use your hands as needed. I'm just checking. I think the sound should still be good here. Okay.
We can still hear you.
Okay, excellent. All right. And we're going to end up, however you get there, in a little bit of a squat. So elbows to the inside or to the top of your knees. And I'm going to teach you my favorite variation of a hamstring stretch. So this is a dynamic hamstring stretch where you bend and straighten your knees. It's this simple. What we're rocking is we're bending the knees and straightening, bending the knees and straightening. And that just allows for your hips to get the mobility back here without yanking on the full length of the hamstrings. Go ahead and settle your hands to your knees. Drop down again into your version of a wide-legged chair pose. Heart reaches, arms go out to the sides. And then sweep one arm by the ear, and then the other arm by the ear. One arm by the ear, and then the other. And keep going back and forth. So you'll notice that one of my hands is going down a little more. That's only because I have a wall there. You can go wide out to the side if you've got space. And then rise all the way up, palms together over the heart. Engage right here. Breathe into your low back, hands to your bum. Press your pelvis forward, squeeze your shoulder blades to get a little bit of a standing back bend. And then exhale, allow your knees to bend pretty quickly. Use those muscles of the back body to support you as you lower, and then let them all completely shake out. Hopefully you're in the middle of your mat. You're going to reach your hands out, hover your knees down over the floor, coming to hands and knees, but just hovering, and rock a little back and forth. Go ahead and lower your knees all the way down, fully in table now. and grab your block underneath one hand. I recommend the medium height position. I have my right hand on the block, so I'm going to spin and open my right knee out. I'm going to get this bonus toe mobility by keeping my toes on the sticky mat and just spreading them out opposite direction of a bunion as I open the knee. Hold the knee open, scoop it around your spine, float your leg up to the outside of your hands. Root through the hands, float the foot, bring it back and lower down. Take it to the other side. So that looks like this. Left knee opens, closes, opens, and closes. Spreading the toes. Keep the knee open now. Push down to the ground, float, 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 and then settle the foot to the outside of the block. Root through the hands, float it up and down. Now we're just gonna focus on foot up to the outside of the block, back and forth. So root, round, step. Root, round, settle. Root, round, step. Root, round, settle. Root, round, step. Root, round, settle. The more you slow this down, better off you'll be. The more core action you will appreciate here and you'll notice. As your left foot comes to the outside of your left hand again, I want you to rise up into a half kneeling position. Very often in yoga from here, we immediately go into a deep back bend and a hip flexor stretch in that variation. But I'm going to encourage you to stay upright and to maintain, with a blanket or a cushion under your knee as needed, a very neutral pelvis here. So you're going to be actively working your front hip points up, your tailbone down, your rib cage back. You can put your hands on your ribs, breathe into the sides, breathe into the back body. Back of the neck long. And then as a little core check, wiggle your front foot to be in line with your back knee, your standing knee, and your back foot. You can use the edge of your yoga mat if you'd like, or you can just eyeball it. So I'm eyeballing it here. And you can see all the little wobbles happening in my body. And this is 360 degrees of core and pelvis, really trying to stabilize me here. And then if you want one more challenge, rise up onto your tiptoes in front, maybe lift that foot off the floor. I'll fall over if I do. You can also float your hands out to the sides, back of the neck long. Maybe then you can float. Squeeze everything in. Hang out here for another round of breath or two. Interlace your fingers and just make a nice little circle with the palms overhead. Both hands to the inside of your front foot. And this is where we have lots of options. You can go right back into the foot that's in front, has the block on that side, and you're going to step and back. If you want to, you can also play with a half of an arm balance, where this front leg lifts up and you just lean in. Or of course, and with or without the block, or of course you could step forward and play with crow pose, which involves both feet off the floor. Lots of breath into the back body in crow pose. Suctioning the feet up makes a massive difference for crow as well. All of this is optional. So you can just hang out even in that inline half lunge too. Let's all get our feet rooted to the floor again. Come onto hands and knees. block under the right hand. Go ahead and set your right foot to the outside. And let's do that again. Let's do that with slow motion. So scoop your belly, push the floor away, hover the foot, then set it down. Block, keep it kind of within arm's reach. We're gonna rise up. Back toes optionally curl under, it doesn't matter. Scoop, draw back, tailbone long. Wiggle your front foot over and find that in line half lunge. I don't know about you, but I don't actually need to go into a deep back bend here to feel a quote unquote stretch on the front of my thigh. I can get the stretch from the front hip flexors and the just almost from just engaging the glutes. Breathing into the back ribs. Hang out here. Instead of interlacing your fingers this time, you can go ahead and do a halo with your block. Trace your angel halo in the other direction. And then settle your block off to the side. Maybe come onto your front tiptoes. Maybe float that foot off the floor. Do whatever feels most fruitful to you. And of course, you can cushion your knees extensively. Exhale, lower the hands. I'm going to show another alternative now. So you can hold onto your front ankle, scoop, set your other foot down, or you can just come into anything that felt good before. I've got one last playful experiment with crow pose. If you did the unilateral one on the other side, then I recommend balancing it out and just practicing here with that. This is what that looks like. So the one knee, in this case, the right knee, would come onto the back of the right triceps. Foot lifts up off the floor. There's an energy of suctioning up and pushing down. Or, of course, both hands. This is all optional. It's all for fun and play. You're very close to the floor, so if you fall, it should be okay. And when you're ready, settle down. Support yourself into whatever squat would be useful for you. And just roll one shoulder back, then the other. Come up out of your squat. Set one hand behind you. From the middle of your yoga mat, we're gonna come into a little bit of a reverse table, but a very specific one. So one hand is free, and it's gonna shoot up towards the sky as the hips shoot up in a kind of like Fame energy, right? The movie Fame, the musical. Press and down. And switch and press and down. And switch and see if you can rise with your tailbone and your pelvis faster than your belly button. So you're sort of scooping the belly button as you lift. Moving with breath. Even though this is a pretty athletic movement, I want you to slow it down a little bit. Feel a sweetness and a rhythm to it. One more time each side. And as you lower down, scoop behind your legs. Wiggle yourself to the middle of your mat. We'll actually do a little bit more with that. Straighten out your legs. And again, forgive my creaky floor. Wiggle, 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 using no arms here until you're in the middle. I'm going to stop because it's too much. That again engages obliques, quadratus lumborum, gives you that what we would call the PNF diagonals in physical therapy. So you're rooting down on one side as you lift the other. It's a fundamental movement to healthy walking, gait, running for sure. Just be on a little walk, arms out, connect. You can bend your knees here, scoop, and start to lower yourself down vertebra by vertebra. Full breath in, big sigh out. Hands to the belly and just notice. Is it easier to breathe into the side ribs? Do you feel more settled into the back of your body? We're going to take a gentle twist to each side. So draw your knees in and softly lower them over to one side. And as you do this, don't worry if the knees stack or if the top knee actually even touches the bottom knee or if there's a gap in between. None of that matters. If you're tight in your low back, and that was one of the inspirations for what brought you to this class today, bring your knees a little closer to your chest. And if you're maybe a little tighter in your upper back or your shoulders or your chest, let your knees fall a little further away so that you get more length in that direction. Shake out your head. Open your jaw, stick out your tongue. And then slowly draw it back in. Rock side to side. And rock and roll to the other side. So again, knees to your chest if you're feeling any kind of compression in your low back. This will be a more useful twist for you. And if you're feeling more tightness in your front chest or your shoulders or shoulder blades, you might want to drop your knees a little further away, meaning towards the front of your mat versus towards your chest. Shake out the head. Make sure the forehead is absolutely smooth, unwrinkled. Even the muscles around the ears are just chilling out, settling, letting go. One more beautiful breath here. We'll rise back to center. Take the spirit of the bridge poses that I've taught you throughout the practice today. Rooting through the big toe, tilting your pelvis back, rising your tailbone. And you can join me in this low bridge, massaging the upper back and then the lower part of the rib cage. Eventually, little by little, getting the lumbar spine massaged into the floor. You can keep your knees bent, your feet flat. You can slide. I didn't mention this in the beginning, but if you have a bigger pillow or multiple blocks, you can slide those under your knees. And then the last option for our final closure for practice is to roll to your side, keep the eyelids closed and rise up. This is all optional, whether you stay in Shavasana or find a seated meditation position. The next round or two of breath to do any final little shakes you need to get cozy and comfortable. Allow your hands to settle in a way that feels comforting and softening. It might be one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest. It might mean palms up or down on your legs or by your sides. Navasana changes our physiology, creates a little difference in heart rate, effort, awareness of the balance of effort and ease, sthira and sukha. Any thoughts that have popped into your head, let them float away. Gently bringing your awareness back to your breath. Please notice if you feel any increased sense of ease. If you're lying on your back, you can wiggle your toes, you can start to wiggle your fingers, but take your time. Begin circling wrists and ankles. And gently drawing your knees and everything into your chest. Rock a little side to side, rocking onto your right side if you're in Shavasana. Joining those of us who stayed and seated. We'll place one hand over the chest, one hand over the belly, reconnecting to breath. Aware of the three-dimensional qualities of breath. Jaw relaxed. If it feels authentic, allow the corners of your lips to turn up, sense of accomplishment for today. And we'll bring our palms together into Anjali Mudra with so much gratitude and grace. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you and your presence. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, I'm going to sign off.
Thank you. That was great.
And yeah, thank you so much. Who was speaking?
Thank you, Ariele. It was so good to see you.
Kira, thank you. Oops, things are falling over.
Love your class so much. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
Oh, I want to say I'm going to be teaching a weekly core class, and it will be through yogaanatomyacademy.com. It's going to be Mondays at 5:30, and I just decided this, and I'm just going to make it happen. And so you can go to yogaanatomyacademy.com if you want, and of course you can go to Anti-Defamation League if you enjoyed this class and make a donation there, and I would absolutely accept notifications of your donation as payment for Monday's class too. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Catherine.
Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The recording will be available on the Cura Grace site. I have a question in the chat. So the recording will be available through the Cura Grace website. Go to the blog and it should be available there if you missed any part of it or arrived late.
And it looked like Instagram worked too. So
Yay!
on both places.
It's a win.
Yes. Thank you for organizing. All the best.
Thank you.
See you next week, everyone.
What is it called again? Yoga Academy Anatomy?
Yoga Anatomy Academy. Let me type it in.
That sounds like a great class.
Oh, it's going to be a lot like today. Yoga. And it's sliding scale and
Thank you so much. That was
I
wonderful.
just miss teaching as much as I used to. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. I had nothing but technical difficulties, but I look